Welcome on into another edition of Love of the Stars. Zach Wolchuk alongside the Super Bowl winning scout, Brian Broaddus. Thank you so much for making us part of your day. We love having everybody with the mailbag questions and anybody giving us any feedback and interaction. We wouldn't be doing this without you. So happy to just make Cowboys content entertaining and try and impart some wisdom on you as well. So, Brian, we did get unfortunate news, and we've covered this on, I'm sure, all of your platforms and on our show on the G-Bag Nation on 105.3 The Fan. But unfortunately, Cavante Turpin did get arrested over the holiday weekend. It was a couple of misdemeanors. He had a weapon, a gun in the back seat. He was going 97 into 70, and he also had marijuana. And Cavante Turpin's a guy that he's got a history of this. I mean, there's a reason he went undrafted at a TCU, had to go through the UFL, make himself back into the NFL. I mean, he's got a history, unfortunately, with some poor decisions. And I think, if anything, this would be just, it probably disrupts some trust with him and the organization. But I don't think overall we're probably going to have any type of, suspensions or maybe a fine at worst from the NFL. I mean, Rashee Rice isn't going to get any type of, slap, basically a slap on the wrist, nothing from the NFL in terms of a major suspension. So I don't know your thoughts on the Cavante Turpin situation, but certainly that was unfortunate headline news over the weekend.
Yeah, the word unfortunate is absolutely right in this case. You're trying to get to, training camp here in the next couple of weeks. And, the Cowboys had kind of been able to manage that part of it. Unfortunately for Turpin, he's carrying a gun, he's carrying marijuana, he's going over the speed limit, he gets pulled over, probably not thinking he's going to get pulled over or anything like that. But here we are. The thing that I think you need to worry about the most, and I talked to some people in the front office about this, with Roger Goodell, you don't know. There's certain things that kind of fall under, well, does this deserve a game? Is this 2 games? Is this no games? You mentioned Rice and the situation. A lot of times the league wants to believe that the justice system will handle these things, but you just never know. And like I say, when I asked somebody in the front office about it, I said, "Yeah, what do you expect?" And they said, "We don't know." And that's the thing that it was not a definite. No, we're good. This was just, it's handled. Everything's fine. But you just don't want to put yourself in this situation as a player. You don't want to put yourself in the situation as a team. You're right about a couple of different platforms I've been on talking about it. I was on the phone call when Dwayne Goodridge, ran into the Good Samaritans and, trying to help a stranded motorist on the highway, and it resulted in a fatality. And that's the call. You don't want any calls like that. You don't want any calls where a loss of life or anything like that, especially when somebody who is a part of your organization is involved in this. And so these are the difficult times that you try and get the team to training camp. You hope for the best. These guys do live lives. Some of them are rock stars. Some of them are not. And, they have the, whether it's for the, for the firearms, for the cars, for whatever, that kind of lifestyle. We all kind of want to maybe be the lifestyle of a Micah Parsons, where you're going to Tokyo and kind of seeing the world, that kind of thing. But it's just unfortunate, and it's something the Cowboys are going to have to deal with. And then this is going to hang over them until the commissioner's office makes a determination whether it is a suspension is warranted or that things are going to be okay.
It is an interesting point where you don't know what Roger Goodell is going to do.
You don't know. You
don't. And could he end up, when it's the Cowboys, I feel like his point of view is, I can use this as, this is a statement, right? When it's the Cowboys and it's the brand. And I mean, hey, if another team's kick returner gets pulled over and arrested, I don't know that it's, Sports Center headlines like it is with the Cowboys. Certainly when the star is involved, it is. So does Roger Goodell view that as a time to maybe make a statement? But I guess we'll wait and see what happens with that between now and the beginning of the season. But hopefully, no suspension, and Cavante Turpin can learn from this, and we can put this, and as a learning and growing experience for him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because, again, the players put himself in that situation. Now you've put your fate in the league office's hands. We've seen what happens when you put your fate in the league's hands. We go back to Ezekiel Elliott and that whole ordeal where there are hearings, there are injunctions, there's all these legal ramifications. Maybe it's not that severe, but again, you're putting your future in the hands of the people there in New York City. And let's not act like that Turpin. It's not like it's your 53rd player, your 52nd player. This guy is a prominent player that looks to be part of your offense this year. We saw it in the practice that I got to watch there at right before the mini camp ended. It's just he was in the backfield. They're handing him the ball. The best punt and kick return. He's a weapon. And if all of a sudden you're playing a game and the commission decides week 1 against Philadelphia that he's suspended for a game, then you lose one of your big weapons, and that affects. So, like I say, it's kind of a pins and needles situation for the Cowboys. It doesn't sound severe. It's misdemeanors, but a gun's involved. Those kinds of things that the league looks at and goes, listen, we can't have our players riding around with guns, even though in some states gun laws are different. And in this state, the state of Texas, it's clearly much different than any other, and I hope I'm not speaking out of legal terms there, but there's some really strict gun laws around the country. Texas seems to have a little bit more of a lax one when it comes to that. So, but the league might view this as like the marijuana, not a problem. The gun, a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's Texas. And I know a lot of people have different opinions when it comes to gun laws, but in the state of Texas, a lot of people are carrying. And I don't want to belittle anything that happened here with Kevontae Turpin at all. He needs to know better, and especially somebody that's had troubles with the law previously. You just got paid. You're an all-pro player. Everything you said, the impact that he could possibly have on this team. This is the fear this time of year, right? You can't hold players' hands when they go off and do their own thing. They're adults. But this is, as a front office, you're like, man, just make good decisions. And unfortunately, this was not one for Kevontae Turpin. One other thing I wanted to get to with you, Brian, before we get into a couple of mailbag segments. He had a lot of great questions, and I love being able to answer the questions along with you this time of year. But pretty cool, we had both of our buddies, Nick Harris of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and then Joe Hoyt, who's back with the Dallas Morning News, doing excellent work there, previously of DLLS with our buddy Jeff Kavanaugh and company. But Tyron Smith has started his own offensive line camp, former Cowboys offensive tackle, recently retired, hopefully future Hall of Famer with his teammate Zach Martin. But in Las Vegas, he put together his first annual Big and Beautiful Summit for offensive linemen, and he's been working with Tyler Guyton as well. So Tyron Smith's been trying to do some different stuff when it comes to maybe a unique way of improving the offensive line. They worked on UFC grappling techniques with fighters. They attended UFC 317, worked on blocking technique. They shared tips and tricks they've learned from their different paths and different coaches. Access to recovery lounges as well, both physical and mental recovery. Tyler Guyton might be one of the best or the most important X factors for this team's success this year. So any way that Tyler Guyton's trying to improve, hey, I'm championing this cause, Brian. Let's go, baby. I love the fact that he's working with Tyron Smith here.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Tyron Smith seems like the last guy that I would have ventured as a coach or, that kind of very quiet.
Man of few words,
very quiet, having the opportunity to be around him, to get to know him. It's just a very, very easygoing guy and stuff. So good for him. When you start to talk about the UFC stuff, when I was with DallasCowboys.com, we flew to Las Vegas as a group to go and visit with the UFC people. So we had two major brands getting together and talking about ideas and sharing ideas and getting to tour their facility. It was incredible. And all the things that you mentioned that they could provide, I am not a big UFC fight fan like yourself, but to get to tour that and see that operation was very impressive. How they have it set up for the training aspects, the nutritional aspects, the healthcare aspects, all these things kind of come into play. So, but what is offensive line play? It It's balance, it's leverage, it's hand placement, it's being able to play with leverage. Yeah, there's some punching in the face and all those things, but yeah, it seems like a very good marriage, if you want to say how UFC techniques might be part of what we see going on in the future of the National Football League. And good for Tyron to be involved with that. And I will also echo your statements of anything to help Tyler Guyton become a better offensive lineman.
Yes.
I'm all for that as well.
Yes. I mean, we've talked about it plenty. The kid's got talent, just raw,
Yeah.
just needs to play. And any type of wisdom that Tyron Smith can give him. I mean, the punch that Tyron was talking about in this article, that's important. The balance that you're able to gain from some of these UFC techniques as well. Hey, I can't wait to get some eyes on Tyler Guyton when we get out there to Oxnard. And hey, man, you're going to be flying out the 21st, or maybe even earlier. I think the 21st will be the first day that we're out there as a station.
Yeah. 21st, we're leaving that Monday, and then we'll be broadcasting Tuesday morning. So yeah, right off the jump, and then you guys join me a few days later. So it should be a very interesting camp. There's so many questions and I'm sure the mailbag will have a few of them. I was trying this past weekend over the 4th, trying to kind of get an idea of what scheme things you might see from the Cowboys. Is this going to be a gap scheme team? Is it going to be a team that's outside zone? How and I had a guy tell me, listen, we've got gap scheme blockers. We've got gap scheme runners. Does that mean it's all going to be all gap scheme stuff? No. But he goes, that's kind of where we need to be thinking right now. And as they learn these players, and I think a lot of it told you when they drafted Tyler Booker what they really, really thought. There was several of these, and not that Tyler Booker's not a good athlete and not can play in space. It's just not more of his style. His style is that take a step, guy in your gap, get a body on and push and get upfield. It's not about, we were all kind of a buzz phrase for when, Clayton Adams was signed on as a coach, and the OC was the pin and pull stuff. We've seen it at Arizona. We've seen a lot of the outside stuff. The great thing about Arizona is they're able to adapt wherever they are in a game, whether it's Connor or, the quarterback. Wherever they can, however they need to adapt, they're able to do that. So, that's where Dallas needs to show some flexibility as well. Are you able to adapt as the game's going on? I'm really looking forward to, and Voch Lombardi and I had this conversation last night on the Doing All Right, is that we're looking forward to seeing how hands-on Clayton Adams is.
Yeah.
With Riley as a line coach and name, but in fact, if we get to Oxnard and also we're watching drills, and Clayton Adams is in fact your offensive line coach and is working with the drill, I don't need Clayton Adams to be walk around guy. I need Clayton Adams to be right there with Tyler Guyton and Cooper Beebe and Tyler Booker, and I need him right there with those guys. So that's one of the things I'm really excited about, is that going to be the case? Is he the offensive line coach the offensive coordinator in title, but he's your actual during games, Riley upstairs telling him what he's seeing, and then Adams on the field making the adjustments with the line on the bench. If that's the case, I will be super excited about the prospects of this offensive line. If he's a walk-around guy and all, and not really involved, I'll have my little bit of my questions. Nothing against Coach Riley and what he could do coming from the college ranks.
Sure.
But I think in that first year, I need a stamp. I need you to put a stamp on what we're going to be, and let Coach Riley look at the situation, look how you're coaching. Okay, Coach, I'm going to take the inside three, you take the tackles. And then we come together and we work that way. But very, very, very important for this Cowboys team this year is this offensive line and the offensive line coaches, and how are they able to teach what they need for their players to have success.
No question, and PFF just had him as the 23rd ranked offensive line. heading into 2025. And hey, you can take that with a grain of salt, right? We've talked about PFF and some of the metrics and the way they do for grading. I know Duke Manyweather certainly had thoughts about that in the latest piece that was shared with Garrett Podell. But man, I think that's really low. I think this offensive line is going to be the reason why this team surprises people. I'm so excited about those three in the middle and the power that they're going to be able to play with. And everything you said there echoes the sentiments that really Clayton Adams and Connor Riley told us on day 3 of the draft when we got to chat with them. I loved what Clayton Adams was saying, where, we're not going to necessarily force anything. We are going to play whatever scheme our players are best suited for, and we'll adjust to them. Whereas we've seen plenty of times coaches are kind of stuck in their ways. They can be stubborn and no, you're going to adjust to my way of doing things. I love the coaches that can come in here. They can be adaptable, flexible. Let me put my players in the best position to succeed. And it does sound like, at least as of right now, this staff is saying all the right things as we get into training camp when it comes to that purpose of coaching.
Absolutely.
All right, you are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's dive into the Dean Julia mailbag. Put out the tweet. You can always follow at Chiafalo Sports, at Brian Broaddus, at Zach Wolchuk. We'll put these out before every episode, especially in the month of July. We're here to answer your questions. All right, these are this is that period. You talked about June radio. We're sliding into July radio until we get into training camp and we actually get the pads popping, have something good to talk about. Let's get to what questions you had. We will start here with Dean Julia. Do you think that Brandon Butter Aubrey has 70 yards in him this year, specifically at Denver? Also, what does a long-term deal with him look like, and when does that have to happen?
Yeah, I think that clearly Denver would be the place that you would focus. Very capable at home games at AT&T with the way that the roof closed, the wind conditions, really all you're doing with air conditioning, blowing wind around in that building. But yeah, Denver would be the place that you might see somebody try a 70-yard field goal. The altitude is conducive to those kinds of kicks. The way that Aubrey's able to get the ball up, but also drive it, I think is important. For these long kicks, you can't just drive the ball and you get it blocked that way. So you have to have a little bit of drive, but you have to also have a little bit of height to get it going. And he does all those things. So Denver seems like a really good possibility. But again, I would not be surprised in one of these maybe early games, where all of a sudden right before half that, they're down to 1 or 2 seconds. And we're getting ready to do the halftime show from AT&T, and Aubrey lines up for a 70-yard field goal, and Brad Sham says, "My gosh, I just saw a 70-yard field goal." And here we are. So wouldn't be surprised at all at a game at AT&T as well.
Me either. We know he's got the leg for it, man. I'd absolutely love to see it. I think this could be the year. In terms of the contract, it's crazy because kickers used to be super cheap. Not so much. I mean, the kicker salaries have really been booming over the last couple of years. Your highest paid kicker right now, Jason Myers in Seattle, his cap number is just under $7 million for this coming season. And then behind him, you have Graham Gano in the division with the Giants at just under 5.7. So if you're looking at a Brandon Aubrey contract, and I'm sure the Cowboys would like to get that thing 5 years is kind of what they typically would go for if they can, but you might be looking at like a $7 million annual average, possibly. It could be 5 for 35. Maybe you can get that number down a little bit if Brandon wants to play ball with you. But I believe he's got the same agent as Dak does, and we know how those negotiations.
Todd France.
So I don't think that Brandon Aubrey's like in a super big rush. He seems very laid back, chill, cool, calm, collected. It's got to happen after this year because he'll be a free agent. But I do believe that thing will get ironed out. But you could be looking at anywhere from $6 to $7 million a year, possibly, for Brandon Aubrey based on this kicker market.
Yeah, the thing that's always interesting, if you don't have a kicker, it's a nightmare. If you do have a kicker, it's one of the greatest weapons. I mean, this guy, you get the ball to midfield, you have a chance for points with this guy. And that's what makes him so unique. The kickoffs, he could angle them. He could put them out of the end zone. He could put them in corners. It's that soccer background where he has control of his leg and his ability to put his foot right where he needs to on the ball to kind of push it where he needs to to go. And so the determination you have to make now is Brandon Aubrey more valuable than, say, your backup quarterback? And
Sure.
maybe your backup quarterback is a $4 or $5 million guy. And, now you're going to have to determine, hell yeah, he's a valuable piece. So, I know I've had discussions before, and, we've talked about Justin Tucker when he was really kicking well for the Ravens. And I was sitting there thinking, like, would you, if you were a team that didn't have a kicker, but you were a good team, what would you give up for a guy like that? Would you give up the late 1? Would you give up a 2 for a guy like that? If you're a team that needed the kicker just to put you over the top, heck yeah. So, Brandon Aubrey, to me, I mean, please don't take this the wrong way. He's as valuable as a piece of, we were talking about top 10s the other day.
Yeah.
He's one of your top 10 players just because of his ability. But if I was a team that needed a kicker, you keep me from offering a second round pick to Dallas or something like that to try and get a guy like that I know that is consistent as he is. Man, he is super, super valuable. So hopefully they get this thing done sooner than later.
I'm with you, man.
Which is hard. Which is hard for the Cowboys to do as of late.
Hey, deadlines make deals, bro. We've heard that line. So next year. That's what I'm saying. We're going to wait the whole
next
year.
Yeah,
we'll get this thing done.
Highest paid kicker then next year.
Yep, history in the NFL. Brandon Butter Aubrey. All right, let's go to STX Mario. I like this. He said, Brian, I know you like your games, all right? Mm-hmm. So he said somebody else he saw posed a pretty good question. If you had to choose one player on each side of the ball to have the best season in franchise history at their position, who would you choose? And he's taking quarterback out. So we can't have Dak, which immediately I was thinking, well, duh, it'd be the quarterback. But Mario, good point. It'd be too easy to say the quarterback. So one position, each side of the ball, franchise record season. Which spot are we going? And I guess that's tough for offensive linemen.
Yeah,
what would be like pancakes? Is that what we're looking at here for offensive linemen? No, a season without penalties?
Yeah, if you want to put all 5 guys together and make them one, you would love for them to have a very similar type of a offensive line like they had in 2016 with Zeke. Mm-hmm. Me personally, taking the quarterback you said out of play, give me the running backs. Because I think to me that where there's so much unknown about the running back, but if all of a sudden you had a season where does Zeke hold the record for yards in a season?
Still DeMarco Murray.
It's still DeMarco Murray.
I think it's okay.
I knew it was between Murray and Zeke, and I knew that DeMarco Murray was on was it like 1,800 yards? Maybe it was like a couple.
Yeah, it was 100 yards. He was flirting with 2,000 that year.
Sure was. So then, okay, if you told me that one of these backs could have a DeMarco Murray type of a season, sign me up for that all day. I think defensively, give me. It would be really easy to say Micah Parsons doing sacks. It would be, give me one of these linebackers, maybe flirting with who would be a Dat Win type of a seat. Who would be the guy who's had the most tackles as a linebacker? I'm trying to think of would it be a Dat Win or would it be somebody else for linebackers? But give me one of those guys. Sacks are really easy to say.
Sure.
Sacks are real easy to say. But man, if you had a linebacker that was just, and I don't remember. I don't know if Sean Lee has had the most tackles. I don't know if it's Dexter Coakley or Brady James. Might be Leroy Jordan or Chuck Howley or one of those guys. It might go all the way back to those guys. But if you gave me a linebacker, what is it? Did you look it up?
Okay, single season tackle record. This is stunning. It is not a linebacker.
It's Darren Woodson. Is it Darren Woodson?
So Woody's your all-time leading tackler. Barry Church had 107 tackles in 2013. Then you've got Leighton Vander Esch, had 103 in 2020. Sean Lee and Dat Win also are coming up in 3 and 4.
Yeah. Give me one of those linebackers that has 107 tackles. Then that way I know maybe the run defense. I'm not talking about tackles like 10 yards down the field. I'm talking about around the line of scrimmage or no gain tackles and stuff. But give me it's too easy to say one of these pass rushers that for like I say for Micah Parsons to have X amount of sacks. But I think this linebacker, I mean, we've seen what happens too when it's like a corner has a record breaking year for like interceptions and things like that, where it was Diggs or Bland, how that can affect the game. But man, they're going to need one of these linebackers to play at a really, really high level. So if you gave me a linebacker that had 107 tackles, I would feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you do go back to the sacks. I'm trying to find defensive tackles. Like, who's got the most?
So you think about Osa?
Randy White. Yeah, like, can we get Randy White? I think 16 sacks might be the record when it comes to defensive tackles for a Cowboy. I'm trying to get the breakdown here on the fly. That might actually be games played. That might not be the total sack. But obviously, DeMarcus Ware's got the record
Glover.
20.
Glover.
Glover did have some big years just scanning through here. So, like, yeah, if Osa, like, let's say Osa Digizua.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Has like a 15 sack season, something absolutely crazy. And you get pressure from the middle. Because, like, yeah, you're right, Mike. I think that's low-hanging fruit. But, like, Osa in this defense, I feel like that means Eberflus's defense is succeeding. He's absolutely executing it how he wants to. And then anytime ththese defensive backs, the Diggs year where he leads the league in interceptions, and then Bland, can we get Deron Bland to break his own record? Well, can we get a pick six record and an interceptions record?
Crazy.
You're probably getting 12 wins. That seems to be the trend there. Offensively on that side of the ball, I'll go Jake Ferguson, best tight end season in the history of the Cowboys.
That'd be Jason. That's a Jason Witten year, right? And
absolutely,
like 113. Something like
you might get a 20-something catch game against the Giants from Fergie to have to. It seemed like Jason Witten was always doing that against the Giants. That's an awesome question. I love that question.
That's a good question, yeah.
From Mario. That one's fun to think about. Okay, let's go with what else do we have here? Chris Glover. Will Coach Shoddy march out all the first-teamers for at least a quarter during the preseason? I'll add to that. Like, how important do you think it is? Because your buddy Andy Reid, he does this every year. He's playing his starters, and he'll play them for a damn half in at least one of the games. And I remember when we're always watching Patrick Mahomes and thinking, how is his heart not in his throat right now? Is something bad going to happen? But that's a team that wins. And if Andy's doing it, I think it's probably a pretty good model.
I think it's a good idea. This team the last couple of years has not got off to very good starts offensively. And I feel like that, to me, yes, they're going to have the opportunity to work against the Rams, which they did last year a couple of times. I think, to me, that playing in preseason games, I used to be like, I can't replace players that get hurt. You know, remember Overshone was having a tremendous camp. And then I believe it's against Jacksonville. He's got like 6 plays, 3 tackles. And like on the 7th play, he injures his knee. And then you can't replace that guy. And that's a shame. I used to be a very scared of doing things like that. I'm not anymore. Just they doubt the Cowboys offensively need Dak, George Pickens, Lamb, Ferguson. They need this offensive line. They need the running game. They need at least a couple of series in these preseason games. You only got 3 of them now. Take advantage of 2 of them. Don't use the third one. Use the third one to kind of determine, get through that game. But at least take the first 2 games and try and make something out of it. And I think they played the Rams, and then I think they got Baltimore. Baltimore will be a really, really good test for you. We saw that last year during regular season. So take those 2 games, do something with it with Dak. I hope Coach Schottenheimer does that. If he doesn't, I'm not going to lie, there's going to be a side of me now that's going to be disappointed, because I think this team needs to get off the jump the correct way. They don't need to be kind of struggling and looking like they haven't had any time together or anything like that. So give them a couple of games. I think it'd be good.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you. I'm hopeful. I don't know what to expect because I think there's a lot of unknown right now when it
Yeah.
comes to, we've talked about the offense, but also like what will Brian Schottenheimer want to do? How will he want to play this in the preseason? But I couldn't agree more. Okay, let's get to another one before our next break. Mike Crum, what up, Mikey? He said, give us a backup you hope can take a starting job from the perceived starter during training camp.
The one I've talked about is Awesome Richards at left tackle. That's the one that I've seemed to have focused the most on. I think maybe you could talk about those safeties with you know, those backups. That would be
Thomas maybe steps
one.
up.
Yeah, Bell, maybe one of those guys stepped up.
Elijah Clark, the undrafted free agent, they love.
They love him. What about somebody that's better than Elam at corner?
I mean, Kalen Carson, your second-year corner?
Yeah, that's right now. Elam's, yeah. I would like to see Awesome Richards, and I mean this. And people accuse me of not liking Tyler Guyton.
Why don't you like Tyler Guyton, Brian? What did he do to you?
Yeah, he did nothing to me. I just like I said, I want to see competition there. I want to see him. I want to see him get better. I really want to see him get better. And I think if somebody's pushing him to get better, he's already made the determination that he wasn't very good last year and he needs to be. And I love that. I love that about the kid. But because he admitted that, hey, I wasn't mature. I wasn't good enough. I didn't work hard enough. All these things, all those things that Duke was talking about with him was true. And so but I do want to see Awesome Richards push him. And I want to see if Awesome Richards is good enough that the coaches play him over him. We'll see. I don't know if they will. I don't think they will, but I'm anxious to see if the coaching staff really are interested in playing their best five.
Let me ask you this. If the coaches deem Awesome Richards as the best left tackle to start, do you think they're allowed to start him? Or do you think up top they say, we took Tyler Guyton as a first rounder and they want him on the field, much like the Zeke conversation last year?
No, I think to me that it's I don't think if you're true to who you are, if these are the discussions, again, this is Vach and I talking. Vach believes if Awesome Richards is 60% and Guyton is 40% on the play level, he still thinks that they're going to play Guyton over Awesome Richards.
And I agree with Vach.
See, I can't disagree with you guys, but I find that troubling in a lot of ways. That if the front office is telling the coaches that, listen, this guy's playing at a 40% level, and this other guy's playing at a 60% level, and you're going to go ahead and play the 40% guy just because we drafted him in the first round.
Yeah,
that's troubling to me. And I would, even working in personnel, I would argue what I just said, that, well, why are we doing this? We got a guy, we're trying to win games here.
Mm-hmm.
We're not trying to make people feel better or prove that we're the smartest people in the room because we took a guy in the first round. We're trying to win games. So to me, winning games is playing your best players, whether they're drafted in the first round or they're undrafted free agents. The idea is to win the game however you can with the personnel you have. And I think that in this day and age, teams are trying to protect their drafts. Like, look at us. We're the smartest guys in the room. Where in actuality, like, okay, we missed on the problem we had in Green Bay. We could not hit on a first round pick when we were in Green Bay. For 5 years, it just seemed like whether, John Michael, we couldn't draft a guy that Wayne Simmons was a good player, but we just couldn't get a guy that was Terrell Buckley, couldn't get a difference maker. But you let us draft in the third, fourth, fifth round. We were finding Pro Bowl players there, and it was. But we realized, like, this guy can't play. This first round guy can't play. We got to do something else. And maybe that's where I learned about that. Where I was always taught to play the guys who deserve to play and are your best players. not the ones that you drafted in the first round that you probably missed on.
And shout out to John Michaels. He was my grandfather's back doctor before he passed away several years ago. Sweet, sweet man. Sweet man out of USC, but he'll even be the one to admit to you, Brian, Hart wasn't into it, man. His heart just wasn't. Hart wasn't in the game.
No, man. He is a good dude. I mean, a really, really, really good dude. I mean, it's so funny. This is a quick story. It sounds awful. Got a colonoscopy. By the way, please, if you're the age, get that checked. Very important that you do that. I'm sitting there in the recovery room, and Dr. John Michaels walks in, and he goes, "I heard you were here." And I was under kind of anesthesia. I was kind of half in. I'm like, "What the hell, man? I didn't know." And he's like, "Man, I went to school, guy." I'm like, "My God, I'm happy for." And I was just kind of like out of it. And he and I were just talking about the old days in Green Bay. But yeah, his heart really wasn't. His heart was into doing other things. He just happened to be a really big athletic guy that played college football because he was supposed to play college football when it came time to play in the NFL. Wasn't his bag, and now he's a very successful doctor.
He's really good. I co-sign with you, though. I mean, play the best player. The problem is with this team, I think everything that you were like, which makes you scared, it's just kind of been true. They hold on to they want to give these draft picks all the possible time to prove that they were right. Jalen Tolbert, they're going to give Mingo every opportunity to be the number 3 receiver possibly this year because they traded a 4th round pick for him. They wait to the last minute to cut bait on guys. I mean, Kelvin Joseph, hell, that thing took forever. Taco Charlton, they held on probably longer than they even should have. And those were Tristan Hill. Those were 3 of the guys they actually decided, okay, we're cutting bait here. But they even waited probably a year too long on those guys. So I do think there's something to it with them. They feel like, hey, we drafted Tyler Guyton in the first round. We got to play him. If it's close, we got to play him. But I'm with you. And I like Awesome Richards a lot. I mean, I think there's a world where, and I think Steele's going to bounce back, but maybe Terrence Steele doesn't. And then you look at, well, should we play Awesome Richards at left tackle and should we kick Guyton back to right? They have a lot of depth and options. That's one thing why I'm also very bullish on this offensive line. I think they've got the most depth and guys that can actually play, that could give them valuable starts that aren't just, oh, God, this is a backup guy in the league because we don't have any other option, but actually could be good players for you if they had to start in games. I mean, we saw Brock Hoffman for a stretch be able to do it. You and I are on the same page. I don't know that I want 17 games of that, but I can take 4 games of that, and you'll probably be okay. Not going to be a liability for you. You are listening to the Love of the Star podcast. The Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app or wherever you get your podcasts. Wrapping up with the Dean Julia mailbag. A lot of great questions that we got here. Let's go back for the first time on the Twitters here, Brian. What's the toughest non-divisional road game? Denver would be my answer. We can get yours. And the team that shows up to AT&T the most.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when we did the win-loss, I immediately looked at that Denver game and said that's probably a loss.
Yeah.
I just think that's going to be a very difficult place for Dallas to play. I think Dallas opening in Philadelphia is going to be a difficult game. I think with all the things and the newness of the season, both teams being fresh, hopefully getting through through training camp and all that. But I think that's going to be a difficult game for Dallas to have to go and navigate as well. I think the game that kind of, if you're talking about a team that come into AT&T that might be a difficult game, or you
said who's the team that shows up to AT&T the most? I'm not sure if that's just they play well there, or the fans show up. I mean, immediately I go to Green Bay.
It's Green Bay. It's
right?
Green Bay, yeah.
Green Bay doesn't lose at I don't think they've ever lost at AT&T Stadium.
No, Green Bay, I mean, they have a history, as you mentioned there. The last time they were there, Dallas was the 2nd seed, and, they got mollywopped, and so I would say that would be a difficult. The Kansas City one will be interesting late in the year, having to deal with that one. That could be a kind of a challenging game in itself. But I think that, to me, I think Green Bay would be the one that I would worry about the most. And then the road game would be the Denver one, with 1A or 1B being being the first game at Philadelphia.
Pegleg asks, is there a chance that the Cowboys could trade for a runner if by the end of camp, if things just aren't looking good with that running back room?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They're going to give Phil Maffa and Blue and Williams and these guys all they can handle. And you have to see, but Dallas could absolutely. I was encouraged last year with what was going on at edge and defensive tackle that they kept bringing guys in, you know, and then Carl Lawson played pretty decently for you, but it took a lot of rotation and finding and working through guys, but I could absolutely see them using the waiver wire. I could see them or final cuts, or I could see them trading for a guy. If they have some surplus for another team that has back surplus, I would, if I'm the Cowboys, I'm keeping an eye on, if the pro department should keep an eye on for running backs and potentially those like one technique defensive tackles and maybe even corners. Corners might be another one that we see them trade for.
Yeah, I mean, the Breece Hall stuff was certainly a big rumor before the draft.
Yeah.
Could that end up popping up again? Maybe the asking price comes down. Damian Pierce in Houston is a name we've discussed quite a bit. I think absolutely there will be
Brian
some
Robinson. Robinson.
Washington.
We'll see what, the Commanders are kind of talking about. That do they want, do they feel like that they have enough backs? Is Brian Robinson part of the program? Started off well, kind of faded. Do they want to give him a long-term contract? There's some questions about that. That might be a guy that's on the market as well.
All right, let's get two more in here. Ray of Hope, who is your sleeper horse on offense and on defense?
Sleeper, huh?
Yeah, you know what? On defense, I'll throw out Peyton Turner. We haven't talked about him a ton. I think Solomon Thomas will have his moments. If Peyton Turner can stay healthy, I could see him actually having a pretty good year. And
playing that left end.
Yeah, and maybe that sets him up for a payday. I mean, the size, the length, like he's the type of body that they haven't really had along this defensive line. A guy that can actually set the edge, help you against the run. Not the biggest pass rushing guy in the world, but he might end up getting some favorable matchups because of Micah and Fowler. And if Sam Williams is able to bounce back, and what you've got obviously with Ezraku, the rookie, like there's going to be so many other players that offensive lines are going to have to focus on. Peyton Turner might be the forgotten name, and all of a sudden he's able to maximize a one-on-one battle. He doesn't have the toolbox of repertoire when it comes to twitchiness, the first step quickness that we talk about, but he is a player that can be disruptive in flashes. So you know what, Peyton Turner might be a surprise player that turns some heads this year.
I'm going to go with Murray, the linebacker. I think he's going to turn back the clock, and I like Mingo on offense. I think Mingo is going to end up being the third receiver for you. I think I think what's going to happen with Mingo is he's going to show toughness because of his willingness to block, his that body type and all that. Not that Tolbert's not a tough guy or any of these guys that behind are. We'll see with Flournoy and people like that. I just think that Mingo is finally going to get to play in an offense with a quarterback and get him the ball. And I think that's going to show up in practices. I think it's going to show up in some preseason games, hopefully. And then I think he's going to win the third job. So I'm going to say Mingo and Murray would be my two people that I'm kind of looking at that could have really good years when it's all said and done.
I'll go with Phil Maffa. At running back.
Sure.
Maybe he can step up and give you a little bit. They need it, man. I'm really pulling for Maffa and Blue to just kind of be the two backs that lead the charge here.
That'd be
Let's
great.
Go young, fresh legs and make this happen. All right, final question in the Dean Julia mailbag segment. And you know what? Hell, let's go back to Dean Julia here to close this one out. What are your two biggest fears for the offense and the defense heading into training camp?
Well, I mean, the biggest fear to me is that they don't use the personnel on offense, that they don't use Pickens the right way. They don't really have a really great plan. They talked about how to run the football, but they don't have a really great plan if things don't work. And they kind of just give up on one, and then they put this all on Dak's back. Not that Dak, he's capable, but we've also seen when everything's put on his back, there's some mistakes that could potentially happen there. That's my fear. that on offense that the coaching staff talked a really, really mean game, but they really didn't follow through on execution of what they wanted to do. The plan wasn't good enough, and they didn't help the players. My biggest fear on defense is the fact that teams decide that, you know what, we're going to block your front, and we're going to figure out a way to double Micah, and we're still going to throw the ball because the secondary is not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's my fear. That, you know, people say, well, Dallas can't stop the run. Well, what if Dallas can't stop the run nor stop the pass? And most teams are built to throw the ball. They're not built to always run the ball. Very rare do you get the balance that you have in Detroit or in Baltimore or places like that. Philadelphia, you know, those teams are balanced. They're good running football teams. There's a lot of teams that don't run the ball well, but they have the ability to throw it because they've got receivers. And if Dallas can't cover and they find a way to and people find a way to block their front, that's my biggest fear, that teams just say, the hell with it. We're not going to run it. We're just going to throw it because we have more success doing that.
I'd go, I'm with you, man, because we've seen the lip service when it comes to the offensive stuff and the scheme. Does that end up just being a bunch of bull, and then you end up getting another boring offense, and we're just ripping our hair out every post-game show? I'd say the other fear that I have is that your quarterback's just broken physically.
Yeah.
We saw it at the end of Tony Romo's career. Mentally, like he was the best version of himself ever, but physically, his body couldn't hold up. Is Dak at that point? I mean, and I hope he's not. He looks to be in incredible shape, but father time gets to all of us, and is Dak just that is terrifying to think of. That maybe he could go through another catastrophic injury. I hope to God that does not happen. And then on defense, I think my biggest fear, I mean, you can go with injuries as well, but DeMarvion Overshown just isn't ever the same player. Well, I mean, these are two big injuries that he's coming off of. I don't think that's going to be the case, but if we're going just like, what is your biggest fear? You never get the DeMarvion Overshown that we thought we would, and all of a sudden now you've tied up a ton of money in a quarterback whose body is just breaking. And that would be a really, really big problem for our Dallas Cowboys. All right, Brian, thank you so much, my man.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
All right, Love of the Star. You've been listening to us. We love you. Love of the Star is an Audacy podcast. You can find it on the Audacy app, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you stay tuned. We'll have another episode coming up later on this week. Like, subscribe, tell your friends, spread the word. We love you. Until next time, hugs and hand pounds, everybody.